welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be filming the books I did not finish in March, and there's only three, and the first two that I'm going to talk about were basically I just didn't get into it right from the beginning, so I dropped those pretty quick. So the first book would be Lord of Stariel, which I think I only read like 3 chapters. It was starting out with a fantasy setup where the main character has been away to train her magic and comes back to see if she's going to be picked to run the kingdom after her father dies. There's going to be a ceremony and she has to be there. She just seemed pretty high and mighty for somebody that ran away and then is now coming back. I didn't really enjoy her character, so I just stopped reading it. And then the next book would be Daughter of Shade, which I believe is the first book in the Bellatrix Chronicles. And this book was really confusing because they keep introducing people, and since it's a fantasy, this is a fantasy series, the names are very, different, and I was lost. I didn't feel like continuing. I got bored, and I just couldn't get into it enough to care about figuring out who all these characters were. So yeah, I only read a couple chapters of that. And then the last book that I did not finish in March was Armada by Ernest Cline, and I did not like this book. If you read Ready Player One, and I have, I just filmed a review on it, this book is not okay in my opinion, because it is basically the exact same setup as Ready Player One. We have a teenage boy who's about to graduate. He's very into 80s pop culture, and he has a very tragic backstory. His parents had him very young. Is all of this sounding familiar? Because I couldn't even remember this main character's name. I had to keep looking up his name because I kept wanting to call him Wade Watts, which is the main character from Ready Player One, if you don't know. I don't know why Ernest Cline decided to do this, because it's the exact same thing. I enjoy geekiness and geek fandoms a lot, but the constant barrage of pop culture references and 80s references and geek and nerd references was too much. It felt like product placement. I'm like, what are you trying to sell me? Why do I have to constantly hear all these things? And it was like he went through a list of things nerds like and put them all into the first 5 chapters of this book. If you don't believe me, I have notes. In the first 5 chapters, we hear about 80s movies, music, etc., video games, Van Halen, Queen, AC/DC, The Hobbit, Dungeons & Dragons, Star Wars, World of Warcraft, Star Trek, Tron, War Games, The Last Starfighter, Thor, Thor's Hammer, Sting, Doctor Who, Say Anything, Clark Kent, there's an Obi-Wan quote, a Yoda quote, Peter Jackson, James Cameron, Sarah Connor, Ellen Ripley, Gandalf quote, X-Men. These are not all the references in the book. Those are just the ones that I went back and picked out. I didn't go through all the video game references because I'm not a gamer and they don't all make perfect sense to me, so I don't know if these are games that he made up or games that are real. I'm assuming a lot of them were real, but the point is, this book just didn't seem like it was going anywhere, or at least not anywhere new. I felt annoyed by it because as much as I had a lot of problems with Ready Player One, this book made me long for that. I felt like Ready Player One had much more likable characters, much more interesting idea, and the 80s references made sense. They made perfect sense for a kid in the future to be studying up on all these 80s things because he's trying to find this egg in this game that you have to know all about this kid who grew up in the 80s to find. And so, yes, that made sense. It makes absolutely no sense for this kid to be obsessed with the 80s. I don't know if that's a thing now, if all kids just have to be 80s obsessed, but it didn't make any sense. And trying to make it so his dad died, so that he was obsessed with the things his dad did, okay, whatever. It just felt like the author just wanted to throw in as much of his 80s knowledge as he could because that's what he enjoys. So yeah, I will probably never finish this book. It was so hard to get through and I have to read other things, so I just gave up. If you love this book, please let me know if you think it gets better, if it's worth trying to finish, but I'm just really disappointed with it. I couldn't believe that as I was reading it, how many parallels there were between Wade Watts and this character. Zach Lightman, yeah, he's that memorable. So yeah, if you really enjoyed it, please tell me all the reasons and please convince me to finish it if you can, because I hate to leave it unfinished, but it was so boring. So those are my thoughts on the books I didn't finish in March, and please like and subscribe, and I hope to talk to you in the comments.